Hi beautiful people, here welcome once again into my channel. If this is your first time, please do well to like, share and subscribe. In this tutorial, I'll be showing you how I was able to achieve this beautiful ruched dress. So now let's get straight into the business. In this tutorial, I'll be using a 2.5 yards of the Rucched fabric. Please make sure that you use a fabric that is not too stiff if you want to get this outcome. I already divided the 2.5 yards of material into two, and right now I am working on the center back of the fabric. So now after folding, I never bothered to measure from my center back to where my sleeve was going to end because I was using the whole of the material. As for you, you can take the measurement on your customer. So from there, I located my bust line, which I used 9 inches. On the bust line, I came down by 5 inches. And when I was done, I measured what was remaining from the bust line. I took that same measurement down to the hem of the dress. Please note that this is a very free dress. So whatever your measurement is, after dividing by 4, make sure that you have extra 3 inches allowance on it before chalking down as you see me do. Make sure that whatever it is that you are measuring to the hem of the dress has at least 3 inches allowance. After I was done doing that, I connected. So now after connecting, I measured from my shoulder line to the end line of the dress to measure my gown length. I added extra 2 inches allowance to the hem of the dress. So now I'll be working with a neckline of 3.5 inches for the width and 1.5 inches for the depth of the back neckline. So sorry, this is not really showing just because of the color of the dress. So now after I was done, I went over and measured 1 inch and connected to the neckline to give it a shoulder slant. And then I cut out. So now after cutting out, I took the second piece of the dress, which is meant to be the center front. So now I am folding the center front into two, and I'll be putting the center back on top of it, leaving 1.5 inches in front of the center front. This 1.5 inches is meant to create a casing where our rope will be passing through. So now after I was done doing that, I went over to chalk out my neckline. I used a depth of 9 inches and the same 3.5 inches for wideness. The wideness of any neckline is always the same. The only difference is in the depth. The only difference between the front neckline and the back neckline can only be the depth. So now I'll be cutting out my neckline. Sorry, I'll be tracing out the front piece on the back piece. After I was done doing that, I cut out my neckline. You take your center front and divide into two. After dividing into two, you head over to your sewing machine. So you give it a straight stitch down to the hem of the dress. Place the two pieces on top of each other and give it a straight stitch of 1.5. The 1.5 inches we left the other time, and you sew it straight down. So now I was done doing it and I've given it a good press. Once you are done with that, go to each end of that line, then you stitch it down as you see me doing. Stitch it down on the both ends. So now this is optional. If you want your waist to be snatched, you do this, and if you do not want your waist to be snatched, there's no need of putting a rope. Now let's locate where our rope will be. From your shoulder, you measure your waistline. Mine was 17 inches. And on the waistline, I divided my waist divided by 4. And I chalked out what it gave me. I flipped it over to the second side of the dress, and I did the same thing. Now I've gone ahead to turn my rope. Then I'll head over to the sewing machine and I'll stitch it down. You stitch it on those points we've marked out. So now this is the rope I'll be using. It's a cord. This all depends on you. It depends on what you want. You can use an elastic if that is what you want, and you can also decide to use the same fabric you are working with. This one, it all depends on your choice. So now this is what you do. You pass from the upper part of the dress down to the lower part of the dress, and from the lower part of the dress you pass it up again. Now I was done doing that. That is the upper part of the dress. The rope ended at the upper part. So now you go ahead to your sewing machine and you turn the neckline for the front and also the back. Then you join your shoulders together. I was done joining. I joined my two shoulders together, and I turned the neckline. The next thing to do is to hem in the sleeve. So you hem in the sleeve for the first side of the dress and also the second side. After doing that, then you sew the sides. Sew from the sleeve down to the hem of the dress for the first side. You go over to the second side and do the same thing. You go over to the hem of the dress and hem it in also. And once you are done, you give it a good press. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.